3 months after a DNA test exposed a pastor's secret child, his body was found under suspicious circumstances. The call came in at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in late October. A housekeeper had arrived at the luxury waterfront condominium for her weekly cleaning. She'd used her key to enter, called out a greeting as she always did, and received no response. She found him in his home office, slumped in his leather chair, a single bullet wound in his chest. His eyes were still open. His laptop was closed on the desk. A half-empty glass of bourbon sat next to it, undisturbed. To the responding officers, it looked almost peaceful. Too peaceful. There was no weapon, no signs of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle. Just a dead man in an expensive suit sitting in a room that cost more per month than most people earned in a year. The housekeeper would later tell investigators she wasn't entirely surprised. In the 3 months since the scandal broke, she'd watched him unravel. The confident, charismatic man who used to greet her with a booming voice and a Bible verse had become a ghost. Hollow-eyed, paranoid, drinking heavily. "He told me 2 weeks before he died," she would testify, "that he knew someone was going to kill him. He said he'd made too many enemies, hurt too many people, and that God was finally collecting what he owed." At the time, she'd thought he was being dramatic, melodramatic even, the way powerful men often are when they fall from grace. But now, looking at his lifeless body, she wondered if he'd known something the rest of them didn't. If you want to uncover more chilling true crime stories and see justice exposed, subscribe to Crime Vaults as we bring light to the darkest true crime cases and never miss the secrets hidden in plain sight. To understand how it all fell apart, you have to understand what he built. For 15 years, the pastor commanded one of the fastest-growing megachurches in the South. Grace Harbor Community Church started in a rented middle school gymnasium with 47 attendees. By the time of his death, it occupied a 75-acre campus with a 12,000-seat sanctuary, a state-of-the-art production studio, a coffee shop, a bookstore, and a private Christian academy. Sunday services were broadcast to 847 churches across 12 states. His books sold millions of copies. His speaking fees commanded 6 figures. His social media following exceeded 2 million people. He preached a modern gospel, prosperity theology mixed with traditional family values. God wanted you to be wealthy, he said, but also righteous. You could have the American dream and heaven too, as long as you tithed, prayed, and lived according to biblical principles. Marriage was sacred. Fidelity was non-negotiable. Family came first, always. His own marriage was held up as the gold standard. 23 years with his high school sweetheart, 3 beautiful children, weekly date nights, anniversary posts that went viral. They'd even written a book together, Building Forever, How to Create a Marriage That Lasts. It sold 400,000 copies. Every word was a lie. Her name doesn't matter for this story, so we'll call her Elena. Elena met the pastor in 1999, 3 years before he founded Grace Harbor. Back then, he was just another associate pastor at a mid-sized church, ambitious but unremarkable. He led the young adults ministry and had a reputation for being charming, attentive, and deeply spiritual. Elena was 22, a recent college graduate working as an elementary school teacher. She'd grown up in the church, the daughter of missionaries, and her faith was everything to her. They met at a regional conference. He approached her after a worship session, told her he'd noticed her genuine heart for God, and asked if she'd be interested in helping with an upcoming ministry event. Within weeks, they were inseparable. He told her his marriage was struggling, that he and his wife had grown apart, that they were essentially roommates at this point, staying together for the sake of their young daughter. He said he'd been praying about it, seeking God's guidance, and felt like maybe, just maybe, the Lord was releasing him from the marriage so he could be with someone who truly understood his calling. Elena believed him. Why wouldn't she? He was a pastor, a man of God, and he seemed so sincere, so vulnerable, so devoted to doing the right thing. The affair lasted 6 months. It ended abruptly when Elena discovered she was pregnant. She told him in the parking lot of a Denny's late at night after a Bible study he'd been leading. She'd taken 3 pregnancy tests that afternoon, all positive. His reaction was immediate and cold. "You need to take care of this." She didn't understand at first. Take care of what? Did he mean they'd raise the baby together? That he'd finally leave his wife like he'd been promising? "No," he said, his voice flat. "I mean you need to make this go away." Elena felt like the ground had opened beneath her. This was the man who preached about the sanctity of life, who led protests outside abortion clinics, who called it murder from the pulpit. "I'm keeping this baby," she said quietly. His jaw tightened. "Then you're doing it alone. I can't be a part of this. I have too much at stake." "What about what I have at stake?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. He opened his car door. "I'll pray for you," he said. Then he drove away. That was the last time Elena saw him for 23 years. Elena named her daughter Iris. She never told Iris who her father was. Not when she was 5 and asked why she didn't have a daddy like the other kids. Not when she was 12 and started acting out, desperate for male attention. Not when she was 16 and said she felt like half of her was missing. Elena simply said, "Your father wasn't ready to be a parent. It wasn't about you, it was about him." But Iris always wondered. She'd search her mother's face for clues, looking for features that didn't match. She had her mother's dark hair and small frame, but her eyes were different. A striking hazel green that neither Elena nor anyone in Elena's family possessed. And there was something else, an intensity, a charisma, the way people naturally gravitated toward her when she spoke. Where did that come from? By the time Iris was 23, the same age her mother had been when she got pregnant, Elena was dying. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months. Iris sat by her hospital bed one afternoon in early spring, holding her hand, when her mother finally spoke the truth. "There's something I need to tell you," Elena whispered, "about your father." "Mom, you don't have to." "Yes, I do, because I won't be here much longer, and you deserve to know." Elena told her everything, the affair, the pregnancy, the abandonment, and then she said the name. Iris had heard of him, of course. Everyone had. His face was on billboards, his books were in every Christian bookstore, his church was practically a tourist destination. "He's my father?" Iris said slowly, her voice hollow. Elena nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was trying to protect you. He didn't want you. I didn't want you to spend your whole life knowing that." "But I spent my whole life feeling like half of me was missing," Iris said quietly. Elena died 6 weeks later, and Iris was left with a truth she didn't know what to do with. For 3 months after her mother's funeral, Iris did nothing with the information. She went to work, came home, stared at her ceiling, tried to process the fact that her father was a man who preached about family values while abandoning his own child. But the anger was building. The questions were multiplying. Did he ever think about her? Did he wonder if she was alive? Did he feel even a shred of guilt? She needed to know for certain. Her mother could have been mistaken about the timeline, or maybe she'd lied to protect someone else. Iris needed proof, so she ordered a DNA test. She created a fake social media profile, posed as a journalism student writing a profile on influential religious leaders, and requested an interview. To her surprise, his assistant responded within 24 hours. He loved positive press. The interview took place at his church office, cameras rolling, everything professional. She asked him softball questions about his ministry, his books, his vision for the future. At the end, she stood to shake his hand, thanked him profusely, and collected her things. As she turned to leave, she accidentally knocked over her water bottle. It spilled across his desk.
"Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she said, grabbing tissues to clean it up. "It's fine, don't worry about it," he said, laughing it off, already distracted by his phone. What he didn't notice was that when she'd cleaned up, she'd also collected the coffee cup he'd been drinking from, complete with his DNA on the rim. She sent it to the lab the same day. 2 weeks later, the results came back. 99.9% probability of paternity. Her mother had been telling the truth, and now Iris had to decide what to do with it.
Iris sent the message on a Sunday night. She knew he'd see it. Men like him always checked their phones, even during family dinners. "I know who you are. We need to talk." She attached a photo, not of herself, not yet, but of the DNA test results, with his name and hers side by side, proof he couldn't deny. He replied 11 minutes later. "Who is this?" "Your daughter." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then, "This is a scam. I don't have any other children." Iris laughed bitterly at her phone. Even now, he was lying. "Funny, because my mother's name was Elena Torres. Ring any bells? 1999, Young Adults Ministry?" The 3 dots appeared and stayed for almost 2 minutes. Finally, "Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m., Brewer's Coffee on 5th Street. Come alone." He was already there when she arrived, tucked in a corner booth, wearing sunglasses indoors and a baseball cap pulled low, as if that would make him less recognizable. Iris slid into the seat across from him. For a moment, neither spoke. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. Same eyes, same strong jawline, same intensity. "You look just like her," he said quietly. "And you," Iris replied. He removed his sunglasses. His eyes were tired, bloodshot. "What do you want?" "I want you to acknowledge me." "I can't do that." "Why not?" "Because it would destroy everything I've built. My marriage, my ministry, my family. Do you have any idea what this would cost me?" Iris felt rage building in her chest. What about what it cost me? Growing up without a father, watching my mother struggle alone, wondering my whole life why I wasn't enough. "It wasn't about you," he said, echoing the exact words Elena had used years ago. "It was about survival. I had a calling, a purpose. I couldn't let one mistake derail everything." "I'm not a mistake. I'm a person." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a checkbook, started writing. "I can give you money, help you with whatever you need. Student loans, a house, I can make your life comfortable." He tore out the check and slid it across the table. $50,000. Iris looked at it for a long moment. Then she slid it back. "I don't want your money. I want you to be my father, or at the very least admit that you are." He stood abruptly. "I can't give you that. I'm sorry." "Are you? Are you really sorry?" He didn't answer, just turned and walked toward the door. "This isn't over," Iris called after him. He paused, his hand on the door handle, looked back. "If you go public with this, you'll regret it. Trust me." Then he was gone. Iris sat there for a long time, staring at the empty seat across from her. But what the pastor didn't know was that Iris had recorded the entire conversation, every word, crystal clear, and she was done protecting his secrets. His wife, we'll call her Grace, found out 2 weeks later. Iris had wrestled with how to release the information. She could go to the press, post it on social media, send it to the church board. But in the end, she decided the wife deserved to know first. She sent the audio file to Grace's private email with a simple message. "I thought you should hear this before everyone else does. I'm sorry." Grace listened to the recording alone in her kitchen on a Tuesday afternoon. Her husband was at the church filming promotional content for their upcoming conference. She heard his voice admitting to the affair, heard him dismiss their daughter as a mistake, heard him offer money to make the problem go away. 23 years of marriage, 3 children together, a whole life built on what she thought was truth. All of it a lie. When he came home that evening, whistling, asking what was for dinner, Grace simply set her tablet on the counter and pressed play. His face went white. "Grace, I can explain." "Get out. It was over 20 years ago, before we really get out of my house. This is my house too. I paid for. Grace picked up a kitchen knife, not to threaten him, just to cut vegetables for the salad she'd been making. But the message was clear. You have 1 hour to pack a bag and leave, she said, her voice eerily calm. After that, I'm calling the police and telling you you're trespassing. He tried to argue, tried to minimize, tried to spin it into a redemption story about how he'd changed, how he'd found God, how he'd become a better man. But Grace was done listening. He left with a suitcase and his laptop. He would never live in that house again. The church board convened an emergency session 3 days later. 6 men, all wealthy, all influential, all deeply invested in the church's financial success. They'd heard rumors, seen the whispers on social media, fielded calls from concerned donors. The pastor stood at the head of the conference table, sweating through his shirt despite the air conditioning. "Gentlemen, I want to address the rumors head on," he began. "Yes, I had a relationship before my marriage became what it is today. Yes, a child resulted from that relationship, but this happened over 2 decades ago. I was a different man. I've since repented, grown in my faith, and built a ministry that's changed millions of lives." The oldest board member, a real estate mogul in his 70s, leaned forward. "The issue isn't your past. The issue is that you lied for 23 years. You wrote a book about marriage. You counseled thousands of couples. You preached about integrity, all while hiding a child." "I was protecting my ministry," the pastor said defensively. "You were protecting yourself," another board member corrected, "and now you've put all of us at risk." The financial officer pulled up a spreadsheet on his laptop. "Donations are down 34% this week. We've had 847 people formally leave the congregation. Major sponsors are threatening to pull funding. We're looking at a potential loss of $4.7 million in the next quarter alone." The pastor's face hardened. "So this is about money." "This is about survival," the real estate mogul said. "You need to step down, temporarily. Take some time, work on your marriage, get counseling, and come back when things have settled. This is my church. I built this. And you're destroying it," the financial officer said bluntly. The pastor looked around the table. These were men he'd trusted, men he'd enriched, men who'd built their own empires on the back of his success. "If I go down, I'm taking all of you with me." Silence fell over the room. "Excuse me?" the real estate mogul said. "I know things about all of you. The fund you embezzled from the building project, the affair you had with your assistant, the tax fraud, the money laundering through the bookstore. Should I continue?" The men shifted uncomfortably. "You wouldn't dare," the financial officer said. The pastor smiled. "Try me. Force me out, and I'll make sure every dirty secret this board has buried comes to light. Every single one." The board members exchanged glances. "Get out," the real estate mogul said finally. "We'll discuss this and be in touch." The pastor left the room, adrenaline pumping. He'd won. They couldn't touch him. But what he didn't realize was that he'd just signed his own death warrant.
Iris released the recording on a Thursday morning. She didn't post it on her personal social media. She only had 300 followers. Instead, she sent it to a popular investigative journalism podcast that specialized in exposing hypocrisy in religious institutions. They ran with it immediately. Within 6 hours, the audio was everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, TikTok, news outlets picked it up. Commentary channels dissected it. Memes were born and died in the span of an afternoon. The pastor's attempt to silence his daughter with money, his cold dismissal of her existence, his threat that she'd regret going public. It was devastating. But Iris wasn't done. She also released a photo of the DNA test results, a timeline of her mother's relationship with the pastor, and a heartbreaking essay about growing up fatherless while watching him preach about the importance of family. "He told the world that every child is a blessing," she wrote, "but he treated me like a curse." The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people shared her story: abuse survivors, children of absent parents, women who'd been abandoned by powerful men. For the first time in her life, Iris didn't feel alone. But she also didn't feel victorious, because her father still hadn't acknowledged her, still hadn't apologized, still hadn't shown even a shred of remorse. He'd only released a carefully crafted statement through his PR team. "I deeply regret mistakes I made in my past. I'm committed to healing, growth, and making things right with those I've hurt. I ask for privacy during this difficult time." Generic, safe, meaningless. Iris realized then that she'd never get what she wanted from him. He would never be the father she dreamed of. She'd have to find closure another way. 3 days after Iris went public, another woman came forward. Her name was Jasmine. She was 31, and she claimed the pastor had been having an affair with her for the past 2 years. She provided proof, text messages, hotel receipts, photos of them together at conferences, even a voicemail where he told her he loved her and was planning to leave his wife once the timing was right. The same lie he'd told Elena 23 years earlier. Jasmine said she'd met him at a church leadership conference where she'd been working as an event coordinator. He had approached her, told her she had a gift for hospitality, and offered her a part-time job at Grace Harbor coordinating special events. The affair began 4 months later. "He made me feel special," Jasmine said in a tearful video posted to Instagram. "He said his marriage was dead, that his wife didn't understand him, that God had brought us together. I believed every word. I thought we were going to build a life together." But when the scandal with Iris broke, the pastor cut off all contact, blocked her number, had his assistant tell her that her services were no longer needed at the church. Jasmine was devastated, humiliated, and angry. So she decided the world needed to know who this man really was. The revelation of a second affair, a current one, was the final straw for many of the pastor's defenders. The "it happened decades ago" excuse evaporated. This wasn't ancient history. This was ongoing deception. Grace filed for divorce within 48 hours. The church board placed him on indefinite administrative leave. Major retailers pulled his books from shelves. His television network dropped his show. His life was in free fall. The pastor moved into a luxury waterfront condo that the church owned, technically for housing visiting speakers. It was supposed to be temporary. He spent his days alone, drinking bourbon and scrolling through social media, watching his reputation disintegrate in real time. The hate mail started almost immediately. Hundreds of messages calling him a fraud, a hypocrite, a false prophet. People he'd counseled, people he'd married, people who'd trusted him. Some of the messages were worse than hateful. They were threatening. "You deserve to burn in hell. I hope someone sends you there soon. False prophets like you should be stoned to death like in the Old Testament. I know where you live. Sleep with one eye open." He reported several to the police, but they said unless someone made a specific, credible threat, there wasn't much they could do. This was the internet. People said terrible things. It rarely meant anything. But the pastor couldn't shake the feeling that someone out there truly wanted him dead. His paranoia grew. He stopped going out except for essential errands. He hired a private security consultant who installed cameras and upgraded the locks on his condo. He told his housekeeper, "Someone's going to kill me. I can feel it." She thought he was being dramatic, but 2 weeks later, he was dead.
The detective assigned to the case was a 20-year veteran named Frank Holloway. He'd worked hundreds of homicides, domestic violence, gang shootings, drug deals gone wrong. But this case felt different from the moment he stepped into the condo. The pastor sat slumped in his office chair, eyes open, a single bullet wound in the center of his chest. The kill shot had been precise, straight through the heart. Death would have been almost instantaneous. No signs of forced entry, no defensive wounds, no indication of a struggle. The security cameras in the lobby showed someone entering the building at 11:17 p.m. the night of the murder. They were wearing a dark hoodie, face obscured. They walked confidently to the elevator, pressed the button for the 8th floor, the pastor's floor, and rode up. But the cameras on the 8th floor had been disabled earlier that day. A maintenance worker claimed he'd shut them off to do routine updates and forgotten to turn them back on. The visitor had known exactly when the cameras would be down. This was planned, premeditated, professional. So we're looking for someone who knew his schedule, knew the building security system, and knew exactly where to shoot to kill him instantly, Holloway said to his partner, a sharp younger detective named Ana Rivera. And someone he trusted enough to let into his home at 11 p.m., Rivera added. Holloway nodded, which means it was someone he knew. The question is who? Grace was the first person they interviewed. Standard procedure. The spouse is always a prime suspect. She sat in the interrogation room with her lawyer, calm and composed. Too calm, Rivera thought. Where were you the night of October 23rd between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m.? Holloway asked. Home. Alone. My children were staying with my parents. Can anyone verify that? No. No neighbors saw you? No phone calls? No security footage from your home? I was in my bedroom reading. My phone was on silent. I didn't speak to anyone. Holloway leaned forward. Your husband humiliated you, cheated on you multiple times, fathered a child he never told you about. You have every reason to want him dead. Grace met his eyes steadily. I wanted him to suffer. I wanted him to lose everything he'd built. I wanted him to feel the pain he'd caused me, but I didn't want him dead. Why not? Rivera asked. Because death would be too easy. I wanted him to live with the consequences, to watch his empire crumble, to see everyone turn against him, to spend the rest of his life knowing he'd destroyed everything that mattered. There was a cold logic to it that made Holloway believe her, but believing someone and proving innocence were two different things. So did you kill your husband, Mrs. Lancaster? No, but I understand why you think I might have. They let her go, but kept her on the suspect list.
Iris had an alibi. She'd been at a support group meeting for children of narcissistic parents from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m., then gone to dinner with 3 friends from the group. They'd stayed at the restaurant until midnight. Security footage confirmed it. And then she'd gone home with one of the friends where she'd spent the night. 37 witnesses placed her nowhere near the murder scene. But Holloway still wanted to talk to her. You had every reason to hate him, he said. I did hate him, Iris replied without hesitation, but I didn't kill him. Did you want him dead? Iris thought about this. I wanted him to acknowledge me, to apologize, to be a father even if it was too late. When I realized that was never going to happen, yes, I wanted him gone. I wanted him to stop existing so I could stop hoping he'd change. Wanting someone dead isn't the same as killing them, Iris finished. I know, trust me. I've thought about it a lot since this happened. And the truth is, I'm not sorry he's dead, but I didn't do it. I couldn't have. I'm not capable of that. Holloway studied her. She was either telling the truth or was an exceptional liar. Do you have any idea who might have done this? Rivera asked. Iris laughed bitterly. Where do I even start? His wife? His mistress? The church board? Half his congregation? Angry fathers whose daughters he probably slept with? Take your pick. If you had to guess? Iris was quiet for a long moment. Someone who had more to lose than I did. I just wanted acknowledgement, but there are people whose whole lives depended on keeping him quiet. Like who? Like the church board. He was threatening to expose them. That's not just about reputation, that's about money, prison time, everything. Holloway and Rivera exchanged glances. They'd need to talk to the board. Interviewing the church board was like pulling teeth. Every single member had a high-powered lawyer. Every single answer was carefully crafted to reveal nothing. But the real estate mogul, the oldest one, the one who led the emergency meeting, was different. He seemed almost relieved to talk. He was going to destroy all of us, the man said quietly. 30 years I've been building my business, my reputation, my legacy, and he was going to burn it all down because we asked him to step down for 6 months. Did you kill him? Holloway asked bluntly. No, but I thought about it. God help me, I did. Where were you the night of the murder? At my cabin upstate, alone, trying to figure out what to do. Can anyone verify that? No, I go there to be alone. That's the point. another suspect with means, motive, and no alibi. The financial officer claimed he was at a conference in Houston. His story checked out. 2 other board members were together at a dinner meeting. They corroborated each other's alibis. The last board member had been home with his wife and 4 children. His entire family vouched for him. That left the real estate mogul as the most likely suspect from the board. But there was still one more person they needed to talk to.
Jasmine was a wreck. She'd been getting death threats since going public. She'd lost her job. Her friends had abandoned her. She was living in a cheap motel, afraid to go home. "I loved him," she sobbed during the interview. "I know that sounds pathetic. I know he was using me, but I really thought we had something real." "Where were you the night he died?" Rivera asked gently. "Here, in this motel room, alone, crying and watching Netflix." "Can anyone verify that?" "No, I haven't talked to anyone in weeks." "Did you kill him?" Jasmine looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "No, but part of me is glad he's dead. Does that make me a terrible person?" "It makes you human," Rivera said. "I wanted him to hurt the way he hurt me," Jasmine continued. "I wanted him to feel used and thrown away. I wanted him to regret ever meeting me, but I didn't want him dead. I wanted him to suffer." It was the same sentiment Grace had expressed, and Iris, and even the board member. Everyone wanted him to suffer, but someone had decided suffering wasn't enough. The break came 3 weeks into the investigation. A forensic analyst reviewing the evidence found something unusual about the bullet that killed the pastor. It was a hollow point round designed for maximum stopping power, common in self-defense weapons, but the specific type of bullet, a 9mm Federal HST, was primarily used by law enforcement and military personnel. Holloway and Rivera started pulling purchase records for that specific ammunition. It was sold in limited quantities to civilians, mostly online. They found 17 purchases in the city in the past year. One of them was flagged immediately. The buyer had used a credit card registered to a shell company. The shipping address was a P.O. box. Classic signs of someone trying to hide their identity. But the shell company had to be registered to someone. It took 2 days of digging through corporate records, but they finally found the name. It belonged to one of the church board members' private security firms, the same board member who'd been at his cabin with no alibi, the real estate mogul. They brought him in for a second interview. This time, they had evidence. "We know you purchased the ammunition that killed him," Holloway said, sliding a printout across the table. "We have the credit card records, the shell company, everything." The man's lawyer immediately said, "Don't answer that," but the real estate mogul waved him off. He looked tired, defeated. "I didn't kill him," he quietly said. "Then who did?" Rivera asked. "I don't know." "You bought the ammunition." "Yes, for security. I have a legitimate firearms license. I own several weapons for personal protection. But you purchased this specific ammunition 3 days before the murder." The man was silent. "Did you hire someone to kill him?" Holloway pressed. "No." "Did you give someone access to the ammunition?" The man's jaw tightened. "I want to speak with my lawyer privately." They left the room. The lawyer and client spoke for 20 minutes. When Holloway and Rivera returned, the real estate mogul made a statement. "I purchased the ammunition because I was afraid. He'd threatened all of us. He was unstable, dangerous. I wanted protection, but I didn't kill him, and I didn't hire anyone to kill him. Someone must have stolen the ammunition from my office. I keep it in my desk. Multiple people have access to that room." It was plausible, but it was also convenient. "We're going to need a list of everyone who has access to your office," Rivera said. The lawyer nodded. "We'll provide that." But Holloway knew this case was about to get even more complicated. Because if the ammunition was stolen, that meant the killer was someone close to the board, someone with insider access, someone they hadn't even considered yet. It took another week of interviews, but they finally found her. The assistant, the woman who'd worked for the church board for 12 years, the one who scheduled meetings, managed calendars, had keys to every office, and knew more secrets than anyone else in the building. Her name was Victoria. She was 53, divorced, mother of 2 adult children, quiet, efficient, the kind of person who blended into the background so well that nobody really saw her, which was exactly why she was perfect. When Holloway and Rivera showed up at her modest townhouse, she didn't seem surprised. "I was wondering when you'd figure it out,"
she said, standing in the doorway. "Figure what out?" Holloway asked carefully. "That I killed him." Victoria invited them in, made them tea, sat down in her living room like they were old friends. "Why did you do it?" Rivera asked, her recorder running. Victoria took a sip of tea. "Because he destroyed my daughter." Holloway and Rivera exchanged glances. This was new information. "Your daughter?" Holloway prompted. "She was 19, a volunteer at the church. Bright, faithful, beautiful. He started paying special attention."
If you want to uncover more chilling true crime stories and see justice exposed, subscribe to Crime Vaults as we bring light to the darkest true crime cases and never miss the secrets hidden in plain sight.